Open up to the Gospel of John, John 17:18. Let me start with a story of a young 5-year-old raised in a Christian home, and his mom had taught him that, as Genesis 3:19 says, everyone goes from dust to dust. And one day he was crawling around on his bedroom floor looking for a toy, and he saw the dust bunnies under the bed. He said, "Mom," he said, "is it true every man goes from dust to dust?" She said, "Yeah, that's true." He goes, "Well, under my bed, someone's coming or going." And that's true of each of us. We're either coming or going. And the principle I want to look at today is that of being sent. Where have you been sent? What were you sent to do? And is you doing it? Very simple. I'm a simple human being. John 17:18. Jesus said, "As you sent me into this world, I also sent them into the world." How more fundamental can that be? How much more clear can that be? That tells us that if we understand the mission of Jesus, the methods of Jesus, and the goals of Jesus, we can adopt them. So, "As you sent me, Father, into the world," he said, "I have sent them into the world." You are sent as he was sent. So let's unpack this with a quick series of questions. How was Jesus sent? He was sent in maximum humility, from the majesty of heaven to the poverty of earth. Where was he sent? Again, he was sent on the ultimate cross-cultural mission. We talk about going to third world countries, and I've been to India and Africa and the Philippines, and it is shocking to step off that plane in New Delhi. But can you imagine Jesus coming from the perfection of heaven to the travesty of a rebellious planet? Imagine the culture shock he had to endure. When we go on a mission trip and take kids or whatever, and you go and you land from here to whether it's Uganda or whatever, and they're like, they are in culture shock. And their first question is, "Where's the 7-Eleven?" And there's not one. And so, but what Jesus endured was really multiplied that exponentially. And the question is, how did he behave once he got on his mission? And I hope you'll take heed to these questions and automatically extrapolate how you respond to these questions. Okay, how did he behave when he arrived on his mission? What were you like on your first day on the job here at Calvary? What are you like today on your job at Calvary? How did he treat the men that he encountered? Now, if you remember the movie Matrix, the only good one, the first one, remember that terrific scene with Mr. Smith and Morpheus? He's got Morpheus in handcuffs, and Mr. Smith goes, "I'm going to be honest with you. I hate this place, this zoo, this prison, this reality. I can't stand it. It's the smell. I feel saturated by it." He took Leonard Fishburne's head and just like that with the sweat. The stink, I feel it. I'm infected by it. It's repulsive, isn't it? Human beings are a disease, a cancer of this planet. You are a plague. Oh, what a nice attitude. Now, Jesus could have easily adopted that attitude. This place, you're infected, it's diseased, it's contaminated. You see, Mr. Smith hated people. Jesus loved people. He had exactly the opposite attitude towards people. He didn't come with an attitude of, "Oh man, these people." What was his mission? He said, "I came to do my Father's will." Very simple. And his attitude was what? He set his face like a flint to go to Jerusalem to accomplish his purpose despite the personal price he knew it would cost him. Okay. And then, did he accomplish his mission? On the cross, he said what? "It is accomplished. It is finished." See, we want to be able to say that at the end. I have accomplished my mission. Once you've made a decision for Christ, few other things matter than how you accomplish your mission. And we can easily be distracted, but that really is as Star Trek said, the mission directive, the main deal. You Star Trek fans know what I'm talking about. There it is, quite simply. It's so basic, anybody can understand it. We don't need to complicate this, you know. I'm a backslidden Jordan Peterson fan. I don't know if you know the Canadian philosopher. He's a staggering intellect. And listening to him reminds me more and more of my BC Buddhist days, you know. And the Buddha said there are many ways. But he goes around in philosophical circles in a very impressive way, very articulate and all that. But I really fell off the wagon when I heard him say the other day that, yes, he believes in the Bible morally, but he believes it not literally, but as fiction, as moral fiction. Then these things didn't take place. I thought, well, whoa, time out in the field. He said, look, if you have a fictional savior, you have a fictional salvation. And I will take a hard pass on that. It's really not that complicated. We have seen we are sent as he was sent. We know the marching orders are very simple. The Great Commission. And what's the active verb? Go. Go, go. Okay? And so Jesus said, later we were told that we're to go into Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and the uttermost parts of the earth. And some people have said during this COVID campaign, epidemic, whatever, that, well, just do your missions in New Mexico. Well, we're kind of doing that. But that's not enough, you see. We're to go to Judea, which is geographically the Front Range. We're to go to Samaria, which is America, and the uttermost parts of the earth. And there's no asterisk there that says, except during the COVID campaign. You know, we're to go. And people aren't going right now. Missions has been screeching to a halt. And so, you know, I don't think Paul checked with the Ephesians if they had a plague going on before he got there. He certainly wasn't welcomed there. And Peter, the same thing in Rome, and et cetera, et cetera. The commandment to go is still in force. Go, preach, make disciples in his name, build the kingdom. You know, I mean, Jesus is coming back to Israel without a vaccination. I'll tell you that. So, you know, it's a great comfort, folks, to know your calling. To be sure, the Bible says make your calling sure. And you need to do that. Once you're comfortable in your own skin, in your own calling, things become much more simple. Things begin to fall into place. Dominoes begin to fall. And periodically we hear stories of mailmen or FedEx guys who would start taking all their mail and all their packages and throwing them away. And sometimes they find a guy, a mailman, who has a room just filled with years of mail he just hasn't delivered, just put in the back room. And they interviewed the guy and said, what are you doing? And he said, I hate my route. I thought, that's a staggering thought. And I wonder, do you like your route? Are you delivering your mail? Or are you leaving it in the back room? I just don't like my route. I wish I had his route. If I had his route, boy, I'd be out there every day. We need to deliver our mail. I was raised on a horse ranch, and some of our horses were race horses. And some horses have a very odd thing. They get distracted so easily by the horses next to them. And they're like this, so they put blinders on these horses. So they stay in their own lane. You need to stay in your lane. And, you know, one day Jesus was telling Peter, you know, Peter, you're going to have it rough. You're going to represent me, and you're going to die a hard death, but you'll glorify me. And Peter's like, well, gosh, Jesus, what about John? And we often do that. God gives us our calling. Well, that's nice, but what about, you know, don't do that. Stay in your own lane. I've spent a lot of time in broadcast management, and if I had a broadcast rep making all the calls and doing all the stuff and doing all the presentations, but didn't like the station, didn't listen to it, didn't watch the TV station or the radio station, listen to it, I wouldn't want them working for me. And that's what Christians are like. if we aren't representing and being ambassadors of the joy of the Lord. You see, we go through the motions of presenting Jesus, but we really isn't reflected in our real life. It's an 8 to 5 deal. It needs to really, I would say, saturate our life. I did get back recently from a time at the Disney Institute out in Anaheim, and Disney's one of the most respected brands in the world. And it's transcended, of course, the family of Disney, and it's amazing. They have many layers, of course. They have the theme parks, they have entertainment, they have hotels, restaurants, et cetera, consumer goods. And they've managed to maintain that brand through everything. And I'll just give you 3 quick bullet points of what they taught us. First of all, they said that everything speaks. Everything speaks. There was a time here when years ago, people used to put up signs with Scotch tape on doors around here, and it drove me insane. And I went around and just tore them down. I didn't care. I don't skip wasn't putting them up, so I just tore them down. And I mean, we have tens of thousands of dollars in computers and printers and programs, and they're putting things up with Scotch tape. Everything speaks. Everything. And then secondly, there is no insignificant detail. There's no such thing. Oh, it doesn't matter. We're in a hurry. Yeah, it's just done. No, they don't believe that. There's no litter on the floor. There's no cigarette butts anywhere. And then they said that treat all your guests like a VIP, and they'll become lifelong customers. And lifelong guests, rather. They don't view them as customers. You know, one of my sons is out at Disneyland today. I was talking to him. When I go, I won't go if they aren't giving me a free pass because it's ridiculous. But I said, what's it run? He goes, well, to get into the park is $200 per person, after $50 in parking roughly, and then you got to pay $20 for the Genie Pass and $20 to upgrade the Genie Pass per ride if you want to see Spider-Man or Star Wars. So you see a family of 4 trotting around Disneyland before they buy the ears or the cotton candy or whatever. They're looking at $1,000 right there without travel, hotels, and airfare. And people are the Disney brand. That's the magnet that draws them there. The question I have for you is this: if a rodent can get that kind of attention, how much more should we be attending to the dove? How much more should we be promoting what God is doing and wants to do? See, if I fail to follow the calling in my life, I'm not worried about what God's going to do to me, how he's going to punish me. No. I'm concerned with what he will not do through me. That is my concern. So how do you know where you're called? We look for signs, right? We look for confirmation. And signs can be weird. I was walking around Whole Foods the other day, and I came by the frozen chicken department, and a nice sign there said, humanely raised chicken. I thought, well, that is sweet. That really is, humanely raised chickens. And I thought, whoa, what did the chicken think about that when they humanely cut his head off? So you've got to be careful with the signs. Right? So I'll give you 3 quick litmus tests for the signs, how you know where you're called. First of all, there will be peace, general peace. There can be moments of terror, and that's fine. Joshua, I'm sure, had that, and Gideon certainly did. But general peace. You want to follow the peace. There'll be confirmation. People you trust around you will say, you know what? People, when I was young in the ministry, began to say, you know, I see it. I can see it. I didn't see it myself. I couldn't believe it. I grew up with a speech impediment. I never dreamt of speaking publicly. And so they said, I see a gift for speaking. No. But people will confirm God's gift in you. And then above all, Jesus said, you'll know them by their fruit. So there'll be fruit. Now, it may be small fruit. It may take time. But there will be fruit. There are exceptions. You got the Jeremiahs of the world and who don't get any fruit. But that's a rarity, the Noahs. That's an exception, not the rule. Forgive me, man. And so there'll be peace, there'll be confirmation, and there'll be fruit. So don't be a victim of the greener grass syndrome. Bloom where you are. Look around you here. I hope you do that when you walk into this campus. And it's a great blessing and also a great danger, because God has done so much And it's just amazing what he has done. And we can't depend on that. We can't just sit back on our haunches like a coyote and just howl at the moon. We have to be like a wolf on the prowl. And we have to be hungry. And, the glory days are here if we want them to be. Some people say, back in the early days, the adrenaline, the fun of building. No, this can be the glory days. Tomorrow can be the glory days. But if we say, well, we're just going to rest and relax on what God has done, negative. I hope some of you aren't here next year. Now, that's not rude, and not because in a negative way. I hope God sends you somewhere. One thing I've respected about our pastor and appreciated all these years, he's not people poor. It's easy in a growing church, and I've observed that when I was a senior pastor, and a lot of guys that I know, when you're in a growing, thriving church in those middle years, you don't want to lose good people because you barely have enough people for Sunday school and worship, and you're the fire, and the people that are the second ring, you tend not to want to lose those people. So you don't want to lose the guy who wants to go to Uganda, And so sometimes there's a tendency to kind of hold them, be people poor. Be a poverty of people. Skip's never been that way. He's like, go, just go. It's like, oh, okay. And so that's why there are churches in Denver and Tucson and around the country. Skip's been that way in the work in Jinja and in all over the world. He doesn't push, but he allows, he releases, that's the right word I'm looking for. He releases people to where they're being sent without resentment. So we need people to be sent to the mission field, sent to the church planting, sent to parachurch organizations, and be open to that call. Now, we don't want you to go. We could all stay together in kumbaya, but that's not really what God wants us to do. So just a few more things. I'll leave you with a few quick questions before we go about our busy day. We're in a lost culture beyond any possible belief. The definition of being lost is you don't know where you came from, you don't know where you're going, and you don't know where you're at and what you're doing. That's how the world is. They don't know where they came from. They think they came from organized orangutans. They don't know where they're going. They think, well, we'll wait and see what happens next. And they're just wandering around, just bumping into each other in the dark, looking for pleasure. They're lost. And lost people are dangerous people. I was a lifeguard in college, and one of the things they taught you was that the most dangerous person in the water is the one drowning, to you. Because as you approach them, they're in a panic condition. And you come up to them, they will grab onto you. And many lifeguards, the people who are trying to save those who are drowning, will go down with them. Because they grab a hold of you, and you can't do anything. So they teach you to sneak up on them. You get about 3 to 5 yards away, and you submerge, come around the back, go up, hand by hand, cross chest, carry, and kind of disable them. Well, that's how it is with the people in the world. They don't want to hear from us. As we approach them, they may panic. But we have to, I'm not saying sneak up on them, but we have to be subtle if we're going to save them and allow them to be saved. So that's an important principle. We do have that moral obligation. Two final thoughts. We have a moral obligation to be happy. Now think about that for a second. You have a moral obligation to be happy, not in the happy, Snoopy dance way, but in a true inner way. Because Jesus said in the Macarios of Matthew, happy are those poor of spirit, happy are those who are humble, etc., etc. So we, as ambassadors of Christ, are to represent our brand of Christianity, and we have that obligation not just to be a Fuller Brush salesman going door to door. And then finally, we can be sure what we do matters. You can be certain that what you do does matter. God is not unrighteous to forget your labor of love. He knows, man. He knows it all. He knows the intrigue. He knows the drama. He knows the gossip. He knows the pressure. He knows what your body feels like. He knows the prayers you are praying. He knows what you're giving, and above all, he knows why you're giving it. That's why we need to keep our hearts right with God. Our actions always follow what's really going on in our heart. Our money in our mouths will follow what's happening in our heart. So, look, you have a brief, shining moment to make a difference. This is just a flicker in eternity. Take full advantage of it. My time's up. Matt? Well, then bye.